It's another episode of the Brett Allen Show. We're chatting with the amazingly talented Rodney Toa about Easter Sunday and a myriad of other projects, I'm sure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So this is a great movie, and I'm excited for people to watch it if they haven't had a chance. Your character, I mean, the whole thing is just one laughed after another. Of course, Jay Shandakara and Joe Coy and just so many other people, Tia Kara. Think this is a good movie. How exciting is this to have this project out and for people to watch?
We're super excited about it. It's always been a dream of mine to work with, people at the top of their game, like Joe Coy and Tia Carrere and Lou Diamond Phillips. They're particular heroes of mine. So it's nice to sort of have this opportunity not only to work with those particular people and the likes of like Eugene Cordero and Jimmy O Yang and stuff, but also within this context of a comedy, a family comedy centered around a Filipino American family, and that to me just makes this even more just very particularly special.
Yeah. So you said something interesting, so I kind of want to follow up on that. When you're like, what did I say?
I know. Usually
Well,
with these interviews, I'm like, okay, I got through that one, and then okay,
I'll be the easiest interview that you're going to ever do. I promise you that. Ask your team. I've worked with them for the last 3 years. These are like softball questions.
You can go hardball too. Like I'm an open book.
No, I understand that, but I like to keep things light and simple. I'm like Jimmy Fallon meets NPR. So,
love it.
When you do get a chance to work with people that you've watched on the screen forever, how does that feel like to be in the room with these people and sort of be like, I'm working with some of the greats, you know what I mean? Because you've done some really good projects. And I would consider you to be a veteran, at least from my perspective. Yep. But when you're on set with these people, like how does that feel as an actor to kind of be able to share scenes with them?
I think several years ago, if you asked me the same question, I would be, it'd be a different answer because I would say I still get starstruck. These
really?
Are people who's, I think when I stopped getting starstruck is when I should probably stop doing this, because I feel like I just feel like there is something really alluring and something really beautiful about working with people you look up to and people who've entertained you for a lifetime. And again, like many years ago when I first started, it was one of those like, how am I going to get through this? And I just hope I don't mess it up. And coming into any sort of artistic venture, particularly as an actor, that is it's a pretty precarious thing to walk into an acting job with. So I would say that while I still get really, starstruck, I've worked with enough people who are famous celebrities in the public eye that I just get excited. I get excited to be able to share stories with them and to tell, the stories that we're hired to do together. I don't. It's not as intimidating anymore. It is more exciting and thrilling, and that to me is a different kind of energy to walk into, good artistic energy to walk into an acting job with. So I'm very, very grateful, and working particularly with these people who are legends and heroes of mine, Filipino American actors, everything. I couldn't have asked for better colleagues. They were nothing, and friends now. They've been nothing but supportive from the get-go. They're generous. All the superlatives are there. But I think one of the things that I find particularly beautiful about working with the team that I worked with is they did their homework.
Yeah.
No one does that. No, I can't tell you, Brett. Like, I've not worked with people who come in and are like, oh, I loved you on this particular show. And, I've had such a, blue collar sort of working experience, and I've done a lot of really wonderful guest spots, but they're guest spots, I can't say that I've met anybody. Like, I'll use Lou for an example. Lou was like, he just ran a list of things that I've done that he was really excited about. And I was so grateful for that, because it to be honored and to be acknowledged and validated by somebody you look up to, like Lou Diamond Phillips, for example, just makes this, all the years of like, not getting rejected or doing a bit part here or there, just makes it all worthwhile, because those kinds of things are truly needles in haystacks.
Yeah, no, I could get that. I mean, even having done this for like 3 years, really, that's where we really took off as a show. I mean, I had Melissa Rivers on, not to name drop, but I mean, I
Oh,
was freaking out.
yeah.
The fact that they said yes about her new book, but also knowing who she is for years and years, and then having like a conversation face to face in a Zoom, and then she's like, "Oh, well, I really listened to a lot of episodes of your show and I really loved this interview with this person." So I get it. Because I've done background work and things like that and stand-in work on shows. My, not to toot my horn here, but really when you get to meet people and they know what you've done, even if it's just for research, just for that moment, it is validating. I think that's why I do this, because I like the self validation a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
So, and that's okay. I think, I mean, I have really been a fan of yours for a long time, even going, looking at, Wilfred or Good Girls, or, just some of these pieces that you've done. Even I think it was the Connors, you had an
yeah,
episode.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, 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 totally.
Hot for Teacher or something like that, I think it
Yeah, yeah,
was.
yeah, totally. That's the next
Um,
episode. Yeah.
yeah, but anyway, I think it's great. This movie is really good, and it really does show. Because Joe, I've never had the privilege of talking to him, but I've seen him in interviews, and I think probably has to be one of the most humble people on the planet, having as much success as he's had. He doesn't feel like he's even broken the ceiling yet. As he paid for his own, Netflix special, and then they're like, "Oh wow, we want this," and sold it back to them, for millions and millions of dollars. Who does that? You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, Joe is one of the guys. He's one of the good guys. Like, he's just one of those people that you hope your experience working with him is everything you imagine it would be, knowing his public persona. And he exceeds that. He, from the get-go, he was yes, he was generous, he was very giving, he was very humble as an actor. It's always really he's a stand-up, and in a gigantic, giant, oh my gosh, who was the host of Family Feud?
Steve Harvey.
Steve Harvey told him, he's like, that's giant territory. And Joe,
Yeah.
certainly in his field of stand-up comedians, he is a giant in his field. And there is a level of intimidation, inherent intimidation that comes along with being, I work predominantly in comedies, to go in there and feel like you have to be, on your game, meaning like you have to be funny with Joe to keep up with the Joneses, right? And Joe is quite the opposite. He's just one of those guys. He's like, I know your work already, and I know that you can do this, and I know that you can do this. You come in here with a certain level of skill, so he just lets you go, and that's humbling for
Yeah.
for somebody like him. He could easily sort of like control the steering wheel at any given turn, and he's the kind of guy who lets you take over when it's appropriate in the storytelling for you to do so. And that, to me, again, it just doesn't happen. So I'm really just grateful to him. He's also just I mean, he's absolutely one of the funniest guys, but his generosity to me is what just it puts him into, king territory for me. He's just one of the most giving human beings on earth, and I mean that metaphorically and like literally. He gives you the shirt off his back, and I'm really, really I'm humbled by it.
Yes. Well, I know that you have to get back to work here soon, so I want to be quick in this. Take me back to what interested you in becoming an actor, Rodney. Where was that moment for you where you were like, "This is something
Yeah.
that I have to do"?
Well, it's funny because I never set out to be an actor, Brett. Like I've said before, I went to a technical high school. I went to
Yeah,
Lane.
I was going to ask about that. Like it was
Yeah.
not really your path necessarily.
Oh, no. I mean, I never did it. I didn't grow up in a family of artists. Um, I played piano like every good Filipino boy does, but
That's funny.
I never thought about it as a career. I never thought about it as something that I was going to pursue as a vocation. And I went to college at Marquette University, which is in Milwaukee. Incidentally, Jeffrey Dahmer was arrested at the time I went to college. Um,
Really? Okay, now that's interesting. That's
yeah, we can
crazy.
unpack that and we can unpack that
We'll
too.
have you back on your next project because I know you have a few, but that's so crazy.
Yeah,
Wrong
and then
place, wrong time.
I can honestly attribute my being an actor to a class that I took when I was in college. I was a chemistry major, and my first year, I wanted to break it up, and I took a class acting for non-majors only because it just sounded easy. It sounded so completely different than my STEM path, and so I took a class with a Jesuit priest who told me after like the first few classes was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing this? Like really pursuing this?" And I was like, "No, you're hilarious. Go back to praying." It was like one of those like I had no interest in it. And then he asked me to audition for the school, the university production. And I did, and I got one line in it, and it was kind of all downhill from there. I got bit by the proverbial bug, and then I started really seriously training when I was asked to intern at this place called the Milwaukee Repertory Theater, which is
Okay.
a prestigious regional theater. And I got to work with some really amazing actors who are still friends to this day, and they really set the groundwork for the work that I would eventually, that this vocation that I would eventually pursue, and I owe it to them.
That's great. I love the proverbial piano playing. uh, I have
Yeah,
a funny story that I'll share offline about that. But
yeah, yeah.
thank you so much for this time. Again, Easter Sunday is available to
Thanks.
watch and stream now. Please go see this movie. It's got heart. It's got
Thanks, Brett.
meaning. It's a really good, hilarious Tiffany Haddish. I mean, you all just knock it out of the park on this one.
Thanks.
And
Yeah, she's awesome too. And Brett, I can't thank you enough for having people. You have a lot of wonderful people on your show, but to have, somebody like me and that represents a whole entire demographic of storytelling that's out there and hopefully trying to break through a glass ceiling, it really means a lot.
absolutely, thank you so much.